when you have mediocrity getting into your culture and that's accepted, I feel like it discourages the A player. So any type of like not getting something done, I think it has to be handled immediately. So if we're hiring somebody, we want to know like what their ultimate goal is. Hey, I want to buy a rental property this year and I want to make $75,000. Okay, great. Well, that means you're going to have to make this many calls per day. You're going to have to talk to this many people. I think in real estate, the higher level of talent you have, the better your company is going to be. People just hire people too quickly and they don't vet them the right way. So when you're hiring, you should be looking for only A players, especially when you're really small. But a lot of the salespeople, like mavericks that you'd want and captains, might be a lot more entrepreneurial minded. And my response to that is to give them equity. If they're really talented and if they pay for themselves, then help them realize those entrepreneurial goals. Whether that's maybe you start a company with them or now you're doing flips with them, or you give them equity.
Welcome to the 80/20 Recruit podcast, hiring, building, retaining top talent. This show is dedicated to helping business leaders, recruiters, and HR professionals master the art of hiring and managing real estate and investing companies. I'm your host, Francisco Israel, and you can find me anywhere on LinkedIn. Our podcast is proudly sponsored by 8020recruit.com, where we help real estate companies like investors, flippers, and wholesalers recruit high-performing real estate candidates 100% guaranteed without markup fees or recurring fees. So today we have Jake Arnold. Jake, welcome to the 80/20 Recruit podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. So I'll kick it off with a question that I ask everyone, and I want to know, what do you think is the biggest trend that you see things are changing in the recruiting and finding new talent in our industry? What do you think is changing?
So finding new talent as a real estate business operator is difficult. I think it's probably difficult for all fields to find good talent. But one of the things that I'll say with real estate is you need top tier talent. You need high skilled talent. So we're starting to see the real estate market soften a little bit. And some of the people that might have been on teams in 2020, 2021, 2022, they're starting to become free agents. So not everybody is still around. Not the same companies from 2020 and the zero interest rate environment are still around. So I think some of that talent is freeing up. And then on top of that, you have AI, which is helping with efficiency and increasing productivity for every person within the company. So those are some of the things that I see changing right now is you have AI, which is increasing productivity of each employee. And then you also have labor coming onto the market because the market is softening and companies are either going out of business or downsizing.
So when you say labor is coming off, you mean labor is becoming more available?
Yeah, more labor is coming onto the market.
Okay, and that is labor from whatever, for US based or remote in Latin America or wherever?
So I definitely think if I could short a country, I would be shorting the Philippines because of the AI calling and all that stuff. But so yeah, I think labor is coming online in other countries, but mostly I'm talking about the United States.
Okay. What about you? Do you hire people from Latin America, Philippines, the States? Well, how do you do it?
So we have an American first approach right now. We try to hire everybody in-house on the United States ground, like they live in the United States since we're a United States-based company. And we serve our market locally. So we try to keep everybody as local as possible. I did, however, used to have a team of assistants, overseas assistants, in the Philippines. And then we have some web developers and stuff that we work with, one in Nigeria. So, we have some experience with overseas, but we have pivoted into serving our local community more, as our mission is to revitalize our area. We're in a state, in a city that was kind of left behind in the 70s to 90s period. A lot of manufacturing left. And so we're doing everything we can to bring jobs back to that area, as well as make it a better place to live. So we're trying to hire local.
Okay, I get it. So let's jump into another subject. I want to know, through your view, what do you think is the biggest mistake that companies are making regarding hiring remote employees?
I would say that a lot of people don't know how to hire remote employees. So I guess the first route people go down is through Fiverr or Upwork or something like that, which you're basically hiring a freelancer. And then the next step is like making a post on X or on LinkedIn or Facebook or something, or Indeed, looking for overseas labor. And so I would say the process is the same as if you were to hire somebody that's not overseas, right? So you should be doing the same things that you would be doing if you were hiring somebody to work in your office right next to you every day. And I see a lot of people not doing that. So that includes, I would use a personality test to test my overseas labor, just as I would if somebody was in an office next to me. And I would do, anytime I hire someone overseas, I do a lot of vetting, so I'll make the job description like a instruction manual, where if they follow everything that's on the job description, I know that they're able to follow instructions, firstly. So that eliminates like 70% of inquiries, because they didn't inquire the right way. They didn't follow the instructions in the job description, things like that.
You mentioned personality tests. Any tests you want to mention more than other?
So I don't have any, one that I choose whatever one's free and whatever one is easy. So like 16 personalities right now, I send people that link. It's free. So 16personalities.com. To me, they're probably not. I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. A lot of other people know a lot more than me, but it all comes down to the Myers and Briggs, and they're all kind of the same from what I've seen. But right now we're sending out the 16personalities.com test because it's free and it's easy.
Yeah, cool. I agree. We do a lot of PI, predictive index. It's very, very popular in the real estate universe. But I agree. 16 personalities is awesome and mostly maybe good enough. So yeah, cool. What would be? So you mentioned a few of the mistakes that people do when hiring remote. What about building teams? What are some of the mistakes that people make when building teams? Could be remote or not. Just whatever your experience is up to here.
So I think in real estate, the higher level of talent you have, the better your company is going to be. So I think people just hire people too quickly and they don't vet them the right way. So when you're hiring, you should be looking for only A players, especially when you're really small. And I see people hiring non-A players.
Okay. So the other day, I think it was the last podcast, I had a discussion with one other real estate investor, and we came to like a conclusion or a dichotomy that he was saying that most of the A players that he finds they have like a entrepreneur personality, and entrepreneurs, they don't want to be employees. So when they come, they have like an expiration date. Maybe you can squeeze them and squeeze out a few months, and then they just want to leave and make their own thing or jump to the next shiny object. What do you think about that? Looking for A players, but then they want to leave because they're they have their the entrepreneur personality. Do you think it's all the way like that?
Yeah, I think, some of your top, so not everybody wants to go out and start their own company, even if they're an A player, but a lot of the salespeople, like Mavericks that you'd want and captains, might be a lot more entrepreneurial minded. And my response to that is to give them equity. If they're really talented and if they pay for themselves, then help them realize those entrepreneurial goals. Whether that's maybe you start a company with them where now you're doing flips with them, or you give them equity.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I just remembered that's what I suggested when we were talking about that. And then I said, why don't you give them equity just to keep them around? And we kind of concluded that. It's funny.
Look at Francesco. Look at right now. Look at Meta. I was just reading where Meta was offering $100 million sign-on bonuses on top of their $100 million compacts. I don't know if you read about that, but
no. Can you repeat that? I didn't get 100 million. What? Oh, the $100 million
sign-on
for
bonus.
Monzi?
For if you go work for Meta in their AI department, $100 million sign-on bonus right now. And I think they stole they hired like 10 of the top AI people recently, for massive incentives. If you want top talent, you have to pay for it. You have to incentivize it. I mean, look at what Meta's doing right now. So
okay, I get it. That's amazing. What about, so we kind of skipped a few ones, but let's look it over. Retaining talent. That's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. So what are your strategies to retain talent? Do you give equity to, have you ever done that? Or do you have any other retaining talent strategies that you can teach us?
Yeah, so we're a relatively small company. We only have, like 3 people that work with us at a given time. And right now we're down to even less than that. But I would give equity if I need to keep somebody. I have one person right now that is really talented, and like he's an officer of the company, so he's able to make decisions on behalf of the company, and he has a lot of authority and a lot of responsibility. So if somebody is asking for responsibility, I give this to them.
Mm-hmm.
So
what if the other way around? What if someone is like not asking for more responsibilities, and so I guess my question here is more like, how do you provide feedback to either remote or not team members? Like, and one more thing, when you're 20 plus company and someone drops the ball, it doesn't hurt you as much. But when you're a 4 or 5 people company and someone drops the ball, it's like you want to keep them even if they're not doing all the great job work until you get the other one, or it hurts when someone's not doing their work. It's good. So how do you provide feedback when you're up to or when you manage a small company like yours?
So I would say, like, anywhere from big to small, I think when you have mediocrity getting into your culture and affecting the A players, like when an A player sees somebody perform in a mediocre way and that's accepted, I feel like it discourages the A player. So, so any type of like not getting something done or not being a team player, I think it has to be handled immediately and action has to be taken. I would say the first few steps are addressing it firstly, like immediately, and then giving an action plan on what you expect to happen. So let's say somebody is not making as many calls as they're supposed to be making. You should show them like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how many calls you're supposed to make. This is how many we expect. And another thing we always do is we kind of like work back from whatever that person's goals are. So if we're hiring somebody, we want to know like what their ultimate goal is, what they're looking to achieve from this job. And we'll set our KPIs based on what their goal is. So if they're like, hey, I want to buy a rental property this year and I want to make $75,000. Okay, great. Well, that means you're going to have to make this many calls per day. You're going to have to talk to this many people, and this should lead you to this number. So that's kind of how we do it is we're looking at, what are your goals and how do we achieve those goals? And how does that tie into the company's goals as a whole?
Okay, so that all is great and I agree. But what happens when it doesn't happen? How do you give 1 strike, 2 strikes, semi-strikes? How do you do it?
Yeah, it all depends on where you're at. If you're going to fire somebody that answers the phone and now you have nobody to answer the phone, obviously you can't fire them right away. You need to figure out like what to do. Whether that's hiring somebody new and then firing that person, or you're going to take the calls yourself now. But I would move fast. I would take action to rectify the issue immediately. I wouldn't let it stagnate. Because, that mediocrity like ruins your culture really fast.
All right, but I want to go back a little bit to maybe management before you let them go. So what is a red? There's yellow flags and there's red flags, and then maybe there's a 3rd strike. So what do you think is red flags things that you can let go and things that you cannot let go? And when do you think it's time to let someone go?
So I think it really depends on like how you're setting your tasks and what people are expected to get done. But basically every business should have key performance indicators. And I would say repeated weeks and days of not hitting those KPIs would be a major red flag. And you're probably not going to be right for the role. Whereas like if you don't make as many calls as you need to just one day or a couple days, or you have an off week, like that's not as big of a deal. Everybody has off days. Everybody has off weeks. So I would say like continued negligence is like, it's known that it's being negligent and they're still doing it. That's a major red flag. And then accidents are expected. So, a lot of mistakes are expected, but repeated, constant mistakes, not learning from them, that's the issue. Not embracing our values. So like our core values, our principles, not embracing those, that would be a major red flag.
Right. So Jake, a lot of our audience are people or real estate investors just like you that want to relate on what you're doing, and somehow they want to compare and they want to see, hey, my team is just like that one, is as big or small, and we do this and that. Can you tell us a little bit about you, your business, your market, your team? How's it composed, or how many people do you have? What do they do? What is it that you do? And maybe a little bit on the verticals of business that you take down on real estate.
Yeah, so our goal as a company is to revitalize Northeast Pennsylvania. So we're located in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It's a town that was left behind. It's part of the Rust Belt. And we buy houses, renovate them, and put them back on the market. So our goal is to pay the highest cash price possible when somebody is selling a house, and then to sell it for the lowest price possible after we finish fixing it up and put it on the market. So this allows us to create quality housing at an affordable price. So the more supply that we put onto the market, the better home prices do. The better the tax base is for that neighborhood, that town, that county. They're getting more taxes now, and it's raising the curb appeal for the whole block. So with that, we want to get our construction costs as low as possible so that we can buy it at a high price and then sell it at a lower than, top price. So getting our construction costs as low as possible, getting our overhead as low as possible is really important. So we keep a relatively small team in-house, and we use a lot of different contractors and like 1099 people. So at the beginning of the year, we started off with like 5 people, and right now we're down to just 2. We're trying to use AI wherever we can to get rid of redundancy and to kind of automate some of the tasks that somebody shouldn't spend all day doing so that we can focus more on delivering a high quality product. We have service agreements. We have master service agreements with our contractors. So we don't have to have an in-house construction team. We have basically partners that have their own construction team, and they have first right of refusal to all of our work. And so that's how we do that. We have a warehouse where we're able to buy bulk construction material and bring our supply costs down. And then we use real estate agents to list our properties, which is also a 1099 thing. And we have private money lenders that we work with as well. So we're working with a lot of different people, whether it's construction, cleaning, lenders, salespeople. We're using, and then like our marketing vendors. We have a lot of those. But our in-house team is relatively small.
What exactly are you using AI for, if you can tell us a little bit?
So a lot of our follow-up stuff is being done with AI. So let's say somebody calls our office and they're looking to sell a house. We go out on the appointment and we're not able to come to an agreement. We might mark that contact as, we might set a follow-up for the next 60 days or the next 180 days. And what'll happen is ChatGPT, specifically that model, will prompt a text message and then send a text and an email to that contact and ask them how things went. And then when they reply, it'll analyze that text sentiment and reply based on how the text was, like if it was a positive reply, a negative reply, and then it'll generate a new text and reply to that. And then it'll start up, if it's positive and it's going down the positive chain, it will set up an appointment booking bot to try to reestablish a phone call or an in-person appointment to see what happened with that problem.
If you don't mind me asking, is there an in-between software that you're using for connecting ChatGPT with the email sending?
Yeah, so everything is integrated directly through our CRM. It's called Osmenic CRM. That is our own. We sell that CRM, and it is a agency level of Go High level that we built on top of. But we resell that, and that's all integrated directly in our system.
Okay, so it's So it's like a suite from high level that you've rebranded and modified for your business.
Yeah. Yep. Everything's in there though, from your calendar, text message, contact management, phone numbers, all that stuff.
Love it. Love it. All right, man. I think we're getting to the end here of the chapter. I think we got a great view of your business, of your management skills, of your experience. Maybe one last question here that I would ask you: what do you think is your biggest challenge these days regarding recruiting and retaining teams?
So I would say recruiting is like one of the hardest things you could possibly do. And, I think it's getting to the point where, so for my team, our goal is to have the best people, and with the best people, you have to pay the highest prices. So paying the highest wages possible, you have to make a lot of money to be able to pay a lot of money. So figuring out that balancing act, I would say, is the most difficult thing. It's like, when do you hire for this role? Do you hire before you can afford it, or do you generate more revenue so now you can really pay for a top tier talent for this role? Because a lot of the stuff that we talked about before, just not hiring the right person from the get-go, that might be a thing where you're not paying enough, you're hiring too fast, you're not betting enough. But if you're paying a premium and you're trying to attract the best talent there is, then it's sometimes hard, like allocating that money towards that role, and when do you do it? When don't you do it? Type thing.
Thanks, Jake. I totally agree. And we're getting to the end of the show. I want to give you last couple seconds for you to just send your message to the world or to possible clients that could be listening to you. The mic is yours.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate the chance to talk about some of the things that we do. We are local to Northeast Pennsylvania. So if anybody has any real estate deals, if any houses need to be fixed up or apartment buildings, we are cash buyers in the area, and we're from this area. We're born and raised here, and we're sticking around. Also, if anybody is interested in better software to manage their real estate business, we sell Osmenic CRM. That does have a lot of the AI integrations that I was talking about, which I think if you're not, I don't think AI is like end all be all, like a lot of people do right now. It's very hyped right now. But I do think it's going to create massive productivity gains for a lot of sales teams. And so if you have a real estate sales team, Osmenic CRM, the reason I'm using it, the reason I'm reselling it is because it's the best I could possibly find. So check that out if you're interested. And besides that, I would just say is, try to build a resilient business and not the biggest business, but the best business type of thing. And that's what I would leave your audience with.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So that's a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks to Jake Arnold. You can find them looking in LinkedIn. I did. So I'm guessing you could too. And if you enjoyed this episode, just make sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you're a real estate leader and you want to be featured, just apply to be a guest at 8020recruit.com/podcast. And of course, consider 8020 Recruit as your go-to partner for all things recruiting in our industry. Until the next time, and keep building strong teams and hiring smarter. Thank you.
Thank you.